This episode of the Beauty by ABIC podcast is brought to you by Millionaire Salon Coach. Hello and welcome to the Beauty by ABIC podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Here, we are strengthening and unifying the industry through representation, innovation, and education. This is a platform created and dedicated to the aesthetic and beauty industry, valuing unity and advancement. We serve to represent, support, and inspire you by connecting you with industry experts, expanding your knowledge through educational pieces, and bringing you the latest industry news. This is Beauty by ABIC. Welcome, I'm your host, Stephanie Miller, and today's guest is Andy Heyne from Millionaire Salon Coach. Andy understands firsthand the challenges of being in business and everything that comes with business ownership. CEO of Millionaire Salon Coach and mineral makeup brand Face by R, Andy also successfully runs the Skin Coaches Salon alongside his wife. With a growing family and multiple businesses, he has been through it all, from the pandemic to staffing and financial challenges. His commitment to help other salon owners break free from the daily grind and find the financial freedom to live the life they desire is his sole purpose and passion. Millionaire Salon Coach programs are designed to help salon and business owners build financially free beauty salons by aligning their mission, vision, and core values. He is dedicated to helping salon owners create the life they deserve so that they can live the life they desire. Here to talk to us about how we can best induct, prepare, and set up a new employer for success from both a financial and cultural perspective, from Millionaire Salon Coach, today we welcome Andy Heyne. Hi, Andy. It's so nice to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, Steph, yeah, 100% it is. Thank you for having me on today. It's great.
Yeah, I was really excited to talk to you, actually, because the topic is right up my alley and it's right up a lot of our members and ABIC's alley and all the people that are listening that have salons and clinics, because you're here to talk to us today about how to best induct and really prepare for a new employer to set yourself up for success, really, financially and with your staff and from a cultural perspective as well. So it's a very, very timely topic.
Yeah, I agree, Steph. I think, I'm excited to get into it, actually. So
wonderful. Well, let's launch into it. I think to start off with, we really want to know maybe a few things. Give us three vital things to have in place before putting on or hiring a new employee.
Yeah, okay, cool, perfect. This is great. I think what I've learned, for three vital things to really have in place, we discovered these across trial and error. So, I didn't pick these. I picked these up out of my own coaching over the years of my own business coaches, and obviously a lot of trial and error too. A lot of failed errors. So that's for sure.
That's the best way sometimes, isn't it?
100%. I think it is. I think failure can be bittersweet. I think a lot of us can look at failure in a bad way, but I think the biggest one there is if we learn how to come back from them. That is the actual. That's the cream on top of the cake. So, right. So the first one for the three vital things to have in place before or when we're looking at hiring a new employee would really be to have your salon's mission, vision, and core values in place. And why do I say that? I'm really passionate about having those three things in place because it actually helps you align them and keep them inspired and keeps you on track every single day so you know exactly where you're trying to head with the future of your salon. So in terms of the longevity of it, it makes it a lot easier to make decisions. It makes it easier when you run into failures. So to break that down even further, Steph, so a lot of people aren't familiar with mission and vision statements. Some people are and some people aren't. So I just wanted to clarify. And a mission statement is why you do what you do every single day. So, for example, my mission statement here at Millionaire Salon Coach is to help build financially free salons so you can live the life you desire. So it's what I'm doing every single day that drives me. And then the vision statement is, what's your ultimate goal for your business or your salon or your life, right? So what's the big picture look like? And then, so for an example, my vision here at Millionaire Salon Coach is to transform and impact 200,000 beauty salons. So you can see how the vision is the big picture, and then the mission statement is your daily task, is your daily picture. So I think with those two, it makes, like I said before, makes it a lot easier to make decisions. And then your core values, well, you know, everyone understands the concept of core values. I think it's really vital to have those exactly laid out, what you believe as a person and then what you believe as a salon as well, because that helps for when you go to employ somebody, when you're going through the interview process, you're going to be able to notice if they don't align with your core values just by the way they talk and the way they hold themselves. And if you ask questions, you're going to notice that, okay, maybe they don't align with 3 or 4 of my core values. And then that there will be a red flag on whether you should put that employee on or not. So when you go to put someone on, obviously I know we've all experienced it before. We have a first, we read their resume, we go, oh, that reads really well. I'm excited to get her. And then we interview them. We're like, you know what? I love her. And then 3 months, 6 months into the employment cycle, the life cycle of the therapist, we start to question ourselves, and then we start to go, oh, I'm not happy with her. Her performance has dropped. And then I'm sure you might have experienced something like that before in your career as well, Steph, no doubt.
Yeah, you find out that maybe, you know, what your values are at that point and their values are not congruent. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, 3 months or 6 months down the track, if you start to figure that out, it's a little too late. Like, you've already spent time and energy and money in trying to train that therapist up, where you could have avoided that from the very start by having your core values in place on day one.
Absolutely. And it works well for the actual therapist as well, because the last thing that you want to have being a therapist on your resume is to look like you're bouncing around from one job or one position to another, because that looks like on your resume that you're not, you don't have stability. So it's really good when you're a therapist to be hired and stay at the same place for, quite a long period of time, because that just reads really well and you can get the most amount of experience there. So it works both ways, doesn't it, Andy?
It does 100%. And that was the next point. So the mission, vision and core values, like you said, definitely goes both ways. It helps for the salon and it definitely helps for the therapist too. Because obviously when you're employing them, you want to make it a win-win situation for everybody. Which also brings me to, on that point, to the next one. So the second vital aspect that I truly believe is key is having an ascension plan or a training plan in place. So when I say that, when we go to employ somebody, before we employ them, a lot of the times I was guilty of this, and sometimes I still find myself slipping back to it because I'm still getting used to referring back to our flow charts in our salon, but they're up on the wall now on like A2 size bits of paper, so you can't miss them. But what I have on there is a training plan. So we know we do educational videos every single day. We require the girls to watch a certain amount of hours of educational videos on skin and personal and professional development throughout the week, and then we get them to tick it off.
Brilliant. And you do that religiously?
Yeah, we do that religiously, yeah. And then, I think when you have that in place, it's also easier when you try and employ someone because it helps. It goes both ways, and that's for the therapist too. They're developing themselves, because people now, a lot of people don't just want to come to work. I mean, people want to come to work to develop and ascend and grow in their own personal and professional careers, right? They're not nowadays when you just turn up and get paid a paycheck. For some people, it suits, but for a lot of people, that's sort of old school way of thinking. So, and having a training plan in place before they come on, at least they know from day one, okay, awesome. I know this salon is going to take me, or at least it might help me get to where I want to get to in my own personal and professional career.
Absolutely. My goodness, that is, so you share that with them right in the beginning of the process?
Yep, 100%. Yep. In our salon at the Skin Coaches, we operate completely authentically and open and transparent. And, we've duplicated it time and time again. So, when I bring that as part of my material on how to induct a therapist as part of Millionaire Salon Coach, I think, I think it's religious. I'll never go back from those two things ever again, definitely not from a training plan. So, like I said, it's transparent and it's authentic and they know, you know what I mean? And then it's flip side of that, it's going to eliminate therapists wasting their time with applying for your job. The same thing, you don't want to get them down the track and then they start to lose inspiration. Then you're pulling your hair out wondering what happened or where it went wrong.
Absolutely. It makes so much sense, doesn't it? To put it out there right at the beginning so that you both have a clear pathway to growth.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I think it's fantastic. And a lot of people have asked me, well, Andy, don't you think that would be a little bit too much at the start? And I can see where they're coming from and I agree with their statement. But to me, answer that honestly, my answer is definitely no, because, you know what I mean? You want to hire slow and fire fast. This is a massive mistake we made for years. We were so keen and we needed therapists so badly that we just put on anybody. Not anybody, but qualified, like the resume, first interview went well. When do you want to start? You can start tomorrow. And then,
we had no choice, did we? We had to hire fast and fire slow. It was the other way around for a while there.
It was, yeah. And I used to think that that's the way that it was too, but then I really started to dive into my own professional development and thought, okay, what does it actually cost us, those few months period and the therapist starts to drop off, or if we had just held off and found the right person. So it's almost like a catch-22. It can go either way, but I think, if you have all that stuff straight up from day one, interview process. But that brings me to, actually not the third point, but it's something else about the induction process. So you don't lay the training plan out in the very first interview. So we do a 3-step interview process. It sounds like a lot, but same thing, you want to make sure you find the right person that's going to suit your business model in your salon from day one. And then obviously you bring that out more towards the second and the third interview, not straight up the front, because it can get a bit daunting and you can sort of freak them out straight away. So
makes sense.
And then I did talk about an ascension plan there. So I'll quickly touch base on that one. But when I say by an ascension plan, this is all based off a wage standpoint, right? Because say you employ them at the award wage, just for examples. You employ the therapist on the award wage, right? And then, sometimes they come and ask for pay rises, which is fine, right? People are, entitled to ask for pay rises. But you might not think that they are deserving of it, and they think that they might be. And then obviously we know that causes conflict in the workplace, and then we start to have bad blood, and then, we all know what happens from that. And then, but why the ascension plan is so key is, say the therapist starts on the award wage, right? That's tier 1. And then the ascension plan is if they start to generate, $100,000 in annual revenue in your salon, they get the next pay rate, which is tier 2, they can go up to tier 2. And then if they generate, an extra $210,000 of annual revenue in your salon, or whatever it is in your salon, that's tier 3. And then up to tier 4, then it maxes out at tier 4 pay wage. But then they always know, and then everybody else in the business knows, okay, this is where I'm at. Have I made this much money yet? Okay, well then obviously, I'm not going to get a pay rise until I get to this. And then it's clear from day one as well. Expectations are laid out. There's a clear plan. There's no grey areas. So I think, you lay all these things out, you have all these things in place at the start. They're very easy to implement too, but if you have them from the start, at least you know that moving forward, you've done pretty much all you can from step 1.
Yes, it makes sense. And as a clinic owner myself, I know that lots of clinic owners are listening now and thinking the same thing that I'm thinking. The award wage, if you are able to hire, if you're fortunate enough to be able to hire a therapist that is experienced and is already on a higher wage bracket than the award wage, do you still apply that same theory of reviewing wages periodically if they already are asking for quite a high salary to begin with?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. And the answer to that would be yes, 1,000%. It doesn't matter where they start off. But that's where it comes down to pre-planning. That's why if you have it in place first, you figure out all your salon numbers, you know exactly what your salon needs to make per month, per year, and then, with your profit on top. And if you put people on, you just do a quick calculation, or you talk to your accountant, you'll be able to move the numbers really easy. So it doesn't matter what they start off, wherever they start, their base wage, you call that tier 1. And then you pretty much, really, everyone is to start on the same money. If they're diploma qualified, obviously that's generally the most qualified therapists and stuff we're looking for at the moment anyway. Diploma should always start on the same thing, you know what I mean? Because you don't want to start mixing and matching too many different hourly rates if they've all had the same amount of training, unless they've got specialized tickets that you want in your salon. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I mean, realistically, therapists come from all different types of businesses, and they come from all different types of wage ranges as well, especially now when there's been a skills shortage. We are seeing slightly higher wages. So basically, if you're hiring a experienced therapist, you know, that particular wage, they could come on asking for a particular wage that is higher than what you're advertising. And if you want to then secure that particular experienced therapist, then yes, you need to have a little bit of leeway though. Do you find that, or do you then go back to the therapist and say, look, I'm going to put you on this, everybody that starts with me starts on this particular wage range, and then based on performance, we can get you back up to what you were earning before?
Yeah, correct, obviously. So I think another great question, and the answer to that question is, yeah, we pretty much start everybody on the same. So I'll go back and go, yep, and then that's when you lay out your ascension plan, right? And that's when you lay out how long generally it takes people to get there. So then they know, okay, cool, I'm a couple of dollars less than what I've asked for. Yeah, you admit that and go, look, I know you're a couple of dollars under what you're asking for, but what separates us from anybody else and why we really want you and why we're going to start you off on tier 1 is because you can see here your annual revenue. If you turn over X amount for us in a year or 6 months, wherever you want to do the plan, which we estimate to take, however long, about 6 months to 12 months, but you can literally do that however it's going to suit your salon. And then you're going to go up to this much. And you can see tier 2 exceeds what you previously asked for. And then if you go again, you got tier 3. And then you really explain it to them and they can see, okay, I'm going to work my way up. And if I do my best and I do what's required of me plus some, I'm going to exceed what I've asked anyway. So they're going to you've already offered them extra value than what they've asked for.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense.
And can be very boring. A lot of people, like when you talk about this at the start, I used to think the same. I was like, well, this just is like mind-numbing.
It's not boring, Andy. This is the stuff we want to learn. This is what we want to know,
Yeah, like I used to think it was boring. That's why I'm saying it. I was like,
oh, really?
Yeah, I used to think, this is boring as hell. And then, but I started implementing it, and then I was like, okay, you know what? Then I actually saw the full effect of it all, and that's why I'm so passionate about it now. And so I think, definitely have those things in place. It's easy to get done too, so don't stress out about that.
I loved everything you had to say. I think it just, the penny dropped and it all clicked into place with the Ascension plan. And I love that you call it Ascension plan. It does sound quite grand, doesn't it? It's got a nice ring to it. But I think, it's so important, even if you are hearing these things for the second time, or, sometimes it's nice to just go back and go, right, we really need to go back to the core of what we do. And because sometimes you deviate from the plan as well. And a lot of people listening probably hadn't thought of one or more of those vital things to put in place. So now that we've got those few tips from you, and I want to know as a business owner as well, when are you financially ready to start employing a new therapist, whether it be your first therapist or you've got 2 in place, you're going strong and you're doing really well and you think, I think I need to hire a third. At what point does that kick in for you?
Yeah, great question. I love this question because this is, I think every person on earth that either definitely in the salon industry or even owns a business or even manages it to someone asks the same thing. I think, this is really subjective, this question. So it obviously depends on a couple of key factors. How much money you need to generate for you to be profitable, but that comes off what profit margin you want to operate on in your salon. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I was getting really clear about exactly, okay, this is how much I want per month. I need to cover my costs and plus some cream on top. So you got to have your numbers absolutely dialed in. And I know it's at the start, a lot of people don't have it. A lot of people don't even have it now. We actually didn't have our numbers dialed in correctly until at least a good 8 years into business, right? So it's not something that you pick up or they teach you. It's just something you learn along the way. But once you have your numbers in place, I'm going to give a couple of examples of numbers here. But we got to start off with what suits your lifestyle and your salon first. So I just want to get that clear because the numbers I'm about to throw out could potentially throw some people off, and I'll try and do the math with the numbers I'm going to use as an example. I just want to state that these are just example numbers.
Okay, well, we'll hold on to our hats with the number crunching.
Okay, cool. I'll keep it. It's pretty simple, right? So, for example, size depending, but generally speaking, there was a study done of 14,000 small businesses, right? And they found that the study found that small businesses that operated at an annual revenue of $190,000 with one employee, which was the owner, generally started to break about even. And then 200,000, they had a bit of profit, right? And then 250,000, they sort of found that by the time they put a new employee on, they still had room for profit, right? So does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Okay, cool. And then, so for example, it sounds like a big number, but when we start to take all that costs and stuff out, it's really not. So say, for example, let's just say you need to generate $250,000 in annual revenue. That's probably a safe number no matter what. And it's actually easy to achieve. So that's a whole nother formula on its own. But why that's an important number is, for example, you're going to pay about $50,000 in wages, right? So you're already down to $200,000. And then you've got about $5,000 in annual leave you have to legally pay them. So, you're down to $245,000, and then you've got about $60,000 of tax in GST and IAS payments to come out, which a lot of us fail to capture. Super guilty of that one myself for years, so don't worry. Been in that boat too. And so, you're already down to about $180,000, and that's without your rent, your electricity, your water, and your living costs, and paying yourself.
That's right.
So you start to add it all up, the numbers really start to compound, and then you might only be left, with 50 grand over a year, which is nothing wrong with that number. It's a great number, but if you start to earn 190,000 and you want to put an employee on, you're only leaving yourself with about 5-10 grand a year, and that doesn't leave you've got nothing left for an emergency, right?
Did you know that 62% of clients who have business coaches regard their coach as a best friend and confidant? Millionaire Salon Coach helps to build financially free beauty salons by aligning your mission, vision, and core values. By working with Millionaire Salon Coach, you will improve your ability to run a successful salon, as well as increase your personal success and quality of life. Through Millionaire Salon coaching programs, clients will learn how to build a solid financial foundation in their business, which will result in lower stress levels, an increase in self-confidence, and a more strategic approach to their business. Millionaire Salon Coach is offering our listeners 30% off selected services. Visit millionairesaloncoach.com and enter the code ABIC, A-B-I-C, during checkout. Increase your salon's revenue, freedom, and abundance by contacting Millionaire Salon Coach today.
To answer the question of really $200,000 to $250,000 in annual revenue is a fantastic number, because that's going to eliminate a lot of financial stress when you put somebody on, right? Because you're not going to be stressed about all the bills that I just mentioned.
Mm. That makes sense. And so that's for your first employee. And then for your second and third?
For your second and third, so when you're second and third, you can probably, by then you should have your numbers crunched. You could probably, so the idea is when your first employee, when they start to cover their wages and you really want them to start making profit. So same thing, whatever profit margin that they need to make in your salon, if they're making 10% or 15% net profit, which is what they're supposed to make, then probably look at that. But you want to make sure they're at least covering their wage and what it costs you to have them on, because then it cancels itself out. Does that make sense?
Of course. And then how much does it cost to run their room and, all the rest of it.
Correct.
So yeah, absolutely. The rule that you keep hearing is 4 times a person's salary is what they should earn. What do you think of that rule?
You mean in annual revenue?
So, if someone's salary is $50,000, for your second staff member, they need to be earning you an extra $200,000.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's perfect. I think that number's absolutely spot on. So that's where the Ascension plan really helps, because you are able to work with them and get them to go, okay, that you've already laid it out for yourself, so you can eliminate the math for yourself. All you have to do is just pull up the numbers off your accounting software or whatever software you use, and go, okay, this therapist needs to, they haven't quite hit tier 2 in revenue yet. Does that make sense? It also has to tie itself in together. So to answer your question, I think that is a perfect number. To be honest, I'd even go higher. I'd even go 4.5 to 5.
Would you? Okay, yeah. I think with the increased costs, and it's so important that you said that, projected costs are, and they already have started to rise, but it's predicted to be at least 15%, to run your business, an increased cost to run your business of 15%. So when you say 5 times, I think you're pretty much spot on, 5.5 times. And it's achievable these days, absolutely, because everything, the costs of living and the cost of having treatments is adjusting over time, and hopefully will be reflected in your figures as well. Everything you've just said is so interesting and so really, really spot on. So now you think you're ready. Okay, I'm ready to employ my first or third therapist, whatever it is. And so there's a changing climate that's happened, especially with recruitment. Now, Andy, what do you think are some strategies that we could actually use when recruiting new employees in order to find really good quality applicants and really find that right fit for your business?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Great question. So I've covered a lot of this off a little bit earlier, but I'll really go into a bit more depth here. Once you're ready to go, you go, yeah, awesome. And then when you do the interview, you get to that point. That's where I mentioned before about the solid interview process. So, set that up however it is that you want. But the first one, this is just a suggestion. The first one, good practice is, obviously get them in, have a chat to them. You say, okay, what are your expectations? The first one, generally just a little bit of a chit chat. You just sort of want to get a feel for their attitude. And then the second interview process, so once they've done that, you go, okay, yep, right. And then you want to move them to step 2 of the interview phase. That's where you start to hit them with scenario questions. So I know a lot of people might do scenario questions in their interview process, but you sort of want to leave that to the second time around, and you want to structure your scenario questions where they're like some of them are high stress questions, just in case you're not there or your manager isn't there. You know that they've sort of got the acumen in a self-starter to really handle it, not lose their great attitude. Because sometimes in high pressure situations, people can tend to get a little bit angry, a little bit frustrated, and that comes across in their communication, right? So we really want to have like a solid 2-step interview process, possibly even 3. But I'd definitely start with a 2 interview process first. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes. And are you talking about giving them high pressure questions
yes.
during the interview process? Give us some examples.
So for example, you're there. Say you give them a question. Say, okay, look, you've got your first client in for laser or waxing, and the owner's on holidays, the manager's out, and that you're the senior therapist on, but you're relatively new, and you've accidentally burnt this client. What do you do? What are the steps moving forward? How do you handle that situation? Lay it out to me. What's step 1, step 2, step 3? How would you handle that situation from start to end? And then you just literally let them answer the question, let them talk. Okay, you just write notes. You don't cut them off. Just let them finish it. Yep, cool, no worries. Because you'll really find in those situations where their attention lies, whether it's in how to really satisfy the customer and then go back to the salon's policies and procedures, or they're frantically ringing everybody trying to find a solution where the owner's on holidays and the manager's unreachable. You need to really take care of the customer first. Okay, yep. But you should already know what happens in a situation like that from your salon's policies and procedures. So that's a tough one. It's really that's probably a pretty good one, because I know, I'm not a qualified laser beauty therapist myself, but I have experienced it in our salon, so I do know how those situations go. So for me, we use that one a little bit. That's a very good question to ask.
And it will also, I suppose, be a little bit of an interview back to the employer to see when they do say, look, I rely on the policies and procedures in this clinic. Do you have those? So if you are a therapist, it's a little bit of a chance to then ask your interviewer about what type of clinic they run and if they do have those procedures and protocols available.
It is. That's what I mean. That's why I love this process, because the whole thing's a win-win for everybody. Because it helps you as a seller, as an owner grow. Refer back to what you just said, Steph. It's like, okay, actually, do I have a burn? Do I have a laser burn process? Actually, I'm processing my policy and procedure. Actually, no, I don't. So as soon as I'm done with this, I can go back and implement one. And then everybody's growing. So it's, like I said, it's a win-win. The whole thing here is a win-win for you and the therapist from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any other strategies that you'd use when you're looking to employ that new staff member?
There is, yeah. So definitely when it comes back to the ad's an important one. How we promote the ad these days. Well, I think I really know something that a lot of us miss and we really should start doing is have your mission, vision, and core values on your ad. So then when potential therapists are reading it, they go, okay, this is what they believe in. This is their vision. So that does align with me as a person, or it doesn't. If it doesn't, they won't apply for your job, right? That's ultimately what you want to achieve. You want to achieve somebody that's reading your ad going, okay, that doesn't align with me, and they won't apply. But the people that are applying, if they have read the ad and they haven't just read beauty therapist wanted, sometimes that happens, right? They don't read it, but that's okay. But at least most of the time, it eliminates all that. And that's really, and then just clear expectations. You want to have on there, I think it's another important one, is what sort of personality are you looking for and what sort of personality aren't you looking for? And when I say on there, I sort of mean reference for yourself. So on your job ad, just make sure you have your mission, vision, and core values clear on there, and then that literally keep that simple. Keep that at the top so it's right, so they see it straight up. They know what they're after, and then go into the qualifications that you're looking for. But then moving on from an owner and a salon perspective, it's really vital that you know what personality traits you are looking for and personality traits that you're not looking for. So I've got a saying here, hire for attitude, train for results, because you can't train someone's attitude. Well, you can, you really can't, because that's an internal belief system. And that's not really where you want to be putting your time as a salon owner, right? So you want to hire for attitude, and you can train them to be whoever it is that you want them to be. You can train them certain ways to do your lasers, certain way to do waxing, certain way to do eyebrows. Does that make sense?
I couldn't agree with you more. Honestly, that's gospel.
And I think, I think all this stuff sounds so simple that, like you said before, you hear it time and time again, and you go, you know what? I just read that the other day, but I didn't do anything about it, and today I want to action these items. So the more we repeat these things, we get really clear on what's gospel and what we know is true, what we know we should be doing until we actually do it. I think it's, but anyway, do all those things. That's all I know.
And, I mean, those strategies, there's so much gold in what you just said. So now let's move along the process. And you've actually been successful. It's great. You found a great employee. Then how do you keep them engaged and inspired in the long term so that you don't have a high staff turnover and you have long-term dedicated, loyal staff?
Yeah. Great. Man, you've come out with the fiery questions here today, Steph, so it's good. It's, so this one here is another process. So obviously, as you can tell, there's a pattern here. Everything's a process. Everything's a strategy, right? Because it's just how the world operates. And so this process is what I like to call PPF, so personal, professional, and financial goal setting strategy or process in your salon. So what that means is after probably, I would suggest 6 weeks, after they've been with you for 6 weeks, which is a pretty good time to get engaged with somebody's personality and how they operate, you throw them into what I call a personal, professional, financial workshop. So what that is you really get down and clear with that therapist exactly what they want to achieve personally, professionally, and financially for their own life, right? So this is completely separate from working for your salon. So you as an owner and as a salon can get absolutely clear, so you know that you can also help and grow as a business to help that therapist reach what they want to reach in life. And they're also going to help you reach what you need to reach in life. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the best types of relationships, Andy, are symbiotic relationships that are win-win. You said that a couple of times. I love that philosophy.
They are, and I think this personal, professional, and financial workshop is absolutely key. So the way it's laid out, the way I lay it out in my program is there's a 10-year, 3-year, and 1 year for all three of them, personal, professional, and financial. And it takes it takes 2 hours, generally 2.5 hours to get through the process, but you don't look at the time, right? Because the impact and the transformation that it has at the end and moving forward for that therapist's longevity and inspiration, which leads back to the question, is absolutely vital. And that's how you keep them inspired, because at the end of the day, when that process is done with, they know, okay, this salon that I'm working for, this person has my best interests at heart because they've cared enough to sit down with me, take 2 hours out of their day as a salon owner and actually run through what I want to achieve out of life and they've shown me how I can achieve that within their salon, and they've shown me how I can help them achieve what they need to achieve. So we're both on an ascension plan. And I think it's such a process that, we might go out to dinner with, a lot of times we go to dinner with them and we talk to them in text and we think that we know somebody, but this process is really, a lot of people, this is going to sound harsh, a lot of people don't actually know what they want out of life, right? Sometimes they just turn up and do what they need to do, and they don't even really know what they truly desire out of life. And this process really brings it up and brings it to the forefront of their mind, and then they know, okay, I love this. That's how they keep them inspired, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think what you said is really profound. I think a lot of that stems from we don't actually dedicate the time to go inwards to find out what we do want in life. So what you're saying about, this particular workshop or this particular session that you run, it really gives you the space and time to be able to sit down and analyze what is it that we do want. And I think carving out that time to do that is so important in this busy life. Unfortunately, we neglect it.
Yeah, we do a lot, I think. That's a great point there when you say with the neglect. We do tend to neglect a lot of things in life because we're all so busy trying to be busy, but then we really start to lose track and lose faith in ourselves and go, okay, I'm sort of balancing my act here. I need to take time for this, this, and this so I can have a so everything runs smoothly. But like you said, a lot of the times we don't stop to take a breath. We don't stop to smell the air or them old sayings that they say. We need to take time for ourselves and our teams to find out what everybody wants to achieve out of the reason that we're collaborating together as a company. The more we do that, the more we relate back to it, it keeps us inspired because then it's easy to fall off track. Sometimes you get really busy. You might have had client complaints or you have kids, your kids might be sick or who knows what's happened, right? And then you've got to fork out extra money. You've got to take time off. And then you can really lose focus and lose yourself in those moments of high stress situations. When you lose yourself in those moments, it's easy to fall off track and lose focus on everything that actually really matters. The reason you're there, why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, what does your team want to achieve? When you start to lose sight of all those things, that's when inspiration starts to fail because then people start to get a sense of, I'm not heard anymore. I'm not felt. Business owners, we've all been there before too, Mel. They just don't hear me. I don't feel felt and heard. Yeah. So, and then back on top of that, I think that's how we mainly keep inspiration absolutely at the forefront of everybody's mind. And plus, on top of that, Steph, I think I've seen a lot of questions floating around now in the industry and on the forums about incentive programs. I know incentive programs are new to people. To some people, it is very new, but to a lot of people, it's old. It's an old program, and it's very effective. So that's another way to keep people inspired. But you just tie that back to the Ascension Plan, and that really just ties back to what I've been saying this whole time about aligning them with their personal, professional, and financial goals. It's all around how can they win. So when I say they, how can the therapist win in your salon? So how can your salon help them get to where they want to get to in life, and vice versa?
Oh, wow. Like you're throwing out some beauties there. It's funny because it's like every time I think of something, you're actually saying it. And a couple of times you've actually said the words that were in my mind. So I don't know what kind of work you've done to really hone in on what the clinic owner really needs. Back when you were talking about giving yourself time and, falling into that trap. I was thinking the exact same words. I've been guilty of it myself, is falling into the trap of doing for doing's sake, and then really not sitting back and going, right, how do we, humans have this amazing ability to be able to create and bring into being something that they imagine. But a lot of the time in this day and age, we're not giving enough time and space for our imagination to sit down and take place, to put all those things that you've been talking about into place. And I feel like really, if anybody's listening today, they can really take some gold out of what you've said just now, not just for themselves, but, the best thing that we can do is fulfill other people as well, and to give back to other people. And what you're saying, everything you're saying, it sounds to me like your employees will be very well looked after, because you're actually providing them that space as well to ascend, to grow, to reach their dreams and goals, and to actually get to know them properly.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you said a lot of great things there, Steph, and thank you for that too. It never used to be that way, right? Let's be honest. It was never that way, but I think growing up, it's something so simple that a lot of us hear almost every single time we travel, right? The airplane companies say it every single time. Put your mask on first before anybody else's. And they've said it since masks came into play.
Yes.
How many people travel? And they say it all the time, right? But you just get so numb to it because you hear it so often. But I started to invest a lot of time in my personal and professional development, because I knew to become an effective leader, salon owner, father, partner, I had to better myself, right? And then I went back to that thing. I was like, why do I always say that? Like, it's something so simple, but it's so powerful, because what you said something key before. We need to start to take time for ourselves first. Otherwise, we're not going to know what we want out of life. And if we don't know what we want out of life as salon owners and people, even just people, not even business owners, just as a person, how will it makes it almost impossible for us to bring somebody into our baby, into our business, and get them to go where we want them to go, because we don't even know where we're going. If we're running around in circles, they're going to run around in circles, then eventually we'll run into each other.
How do you bring them into your vision if you don't even have your own vision clear? How do you, to inspire them to go along that journey with you? Everything you've just said is wonderful. Honestly, very, not that it was unexpected from this discussion, but I knew you had some great things to say, but I'm even more pleasantly surprised after talking with you for a bit. Speaking of talking for a bit, we've been going for quite a while, and I could talk to you forever. I'd love to sneak another question in there if that's okay. Just for some fun, because we were talking about everything in such a holistic manner. The last question that I've got for you is, if you could give us some words of wisdom, some tips that you can give to our listeners today to really help them to set them up for financial and personal success. I know that's a big question, but if you've got any nuggets of gold there, we'd love to hear them.
Yep, perfect. Okay, yeah, definitely. So straight into this one, I love this one. Back to, like I said, more really financial things that we can use, so we know we can start to eliminate our financial stress, and we can free out that space up in our mind to become more creative, to lean forward and to grow and expand, right? As soon as we start to feel stressful, we're soaking up energy in our own space, in our own mind, to become creative, to become an effective leader and be the most powerful and impactful that we can in our lives, right? So we've got to start to find out how can we eliminate stresses in our life. And financial stress is the biggest one. One of the biggest ones for almost everybody on the planet, except for super wealthy people. But people that are trying to make it, doing the best that they can, money is always on the forefront of their mind. So to really overcome that, we must know, step one, we must know financially what our salon needs to make per hour just to break even. So we need to know, okay, in 1 hour, does my salon need to generate $52? And when I say that, don't round it down to $50. If your salon needs to make $51.88, make sure that it makes $51.88, not $50, because you've lost $1.88 per hour.
Oh, yes. Doesn't sound like much, does it? But it's very important.
No, you compound that over a year, that's probably $50,000. And that we must know what that number is. So once again, it's very subjective. So you can get all that information. This is not financial advice, this section. I must point that out. Must get that disclaimer out there because I'm not a financial expert. I just do know what's tried and tested in our own businesses. So I would stick to what your salon needs to make per hour. Talk to your accountant or figure out whatever. There is a formula for that. I do have a formula for that. But really find out what it needs to make per hour. That's just to break even. And then once again, add a few extra dollars on top of that so you can start to make some real profit, right? That's number one. And then financially from a standpoint, we really want to understand from having your hourly rate, you're going to know what your annual turnover should be, right? That's projected. So once again, it's all about knowing your numbers. So obviously now it sounds very repetitive because it is. The better we know our numbers, the more effective we can run our salon. Everything's a numbers based. Products, a cost of price, that's a number. Services cost of price, that's a number. Rent's a number. Electricity is a number. Water's a number. We pay people numbers. But everything is numbers. So the better we can understand what numbers we need to know in our salon, the faster we can start to eliminate financial stress. And you can get all that information from your booking software, from your accountant, or literally, I'm sure my contact details will be here somewhere in the podcast. Reach out. I'm happy to run through exactly what numbers you need to know and how we can get those formulas. And that's that one. Then back to, more from a financial standpoint, really know your mission, vision, and core values. I can't stress that enough. I think I've said it like 600,000 times this podcast, but you can see how passionate I am about it. And until we get it down tight, easy process, until we get it locked down, things are going to start to click into gear and you're going to start to find, like I said, all those stresses to start to eliminate, and you're going to start to give yourself more of a balance. Whatever balance means to you in your life, you're going to find a better balance, a better flow, and a better structure having all these things in place. Simple as that.
I don't think I'm ever going to forget, know your mission, vision, and values now, because I've said it a few times. It is very important, because if you don't know where you are, you don't know where you're going, right? And that's even true for the financial situation. If you don't know where you are, if you don't know what your numbers are, you don't know how to get anywhere from there. There's no starting point. Goodness, so many wise words today, Andy. As we said, there's so much more to delve into. We'd love to have you back on the podcast.
No worries, Steph. Once again, thank you, Heyne and Avic, for giving me the opportunity, and all the listeners tuning into this. I know everybody's time's valuable. They've got a lot going on. I know I threw a lot of information out. I do a bit of an information overload most of the time, and it can seem a bit overwhelming, but it helps just to go back and listen to it again and again, or just pick chunks that you want to listen to and implement whatever you can in your life, in your salon, to propel you forward and really start to live the life you truly desire. And then from there, you've got a winning formula, and it's almost impossible to fail. And that's what we got to do, just focus on where we want to go and what we want to do. And with that, my final parting words. Once again, I appreciate everyone's time, and Steph as well as you, and Avic too. So I'm forever grateful for that.
Oh, well, thank you. And I love that. They're winning words. Thank you for listening, everyone.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Beauté by Avic podcast, your online support community for the aesthetic and beauty industry. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay connected.